Hey everyone, greetings. It's Naomi Wolf, and I'm here. It's been a while since I've done the last Geneva Bible reading, but I'm here tonight, Sunday night, to share Numbers 21 of the 1560 Geneva Bible. Loki is off the cases on my lap because he likes to sit and hang out with us while I'm podcasting. And we're actually trapped. It's pretty weird. Brian and I are in an unspecified area of Brooklyn. The blizzard, quote unquote, right now it looks like snow, is underway outside. And our Islamist communist mayor, Zoran Mamdani, has issued a press conference, which is pretty scary in my view, in which he's said that the bridges and tunnels are closed. There's a state of emergency. You can't drive your vehicle outside at all. He's saying stay indoors. Don't go outside to eat at a restaurant downstairs. Kids are not going to school on Monday. Okay, that's fine. But in all the time I've lived in New York, I've certainly never had an Islamist communist mayor say, don't drive. You're not allowed to move around the city. At the same time, I understand that city buses are moving around the city, but just as a veteran or whatever, survivor, I don't know what you want to call it, because obviously we were not hurt or injured except for breathing the horrible toxic emissions. But as someone who was around right after 9/11, and lived pretty close to 9/11 at that time in 2001, it makes me very nervous that an Islamist mayor who's appointing people who overtly say they hate the United States and who have ties to Hamas and ties to funders of Hamas and so on are physically in charge of the city right now and have basically said you can't get out. It's maybe everything's fine, but as a kind of conditioning event, I don't like it. It makes me feel vulnerable. It makes me feel unsafe. I mean, one reason I worked hard to get a place outside the city after the experience of coming home to 9/11, my family lived through it, is that I never wanted to feel like I can't get out of the city. I have nowhere to go. I can't leave the city. I can't take my family out of the city. It's an island and it's very, very, very vulnerable. So it's snow. It's a blizzard. There have been blizzards in New York for, as long as there's been recorded human history. There used to be much deeper snow and more severe blizzards in the 19th century. Anyone who studies the history of the city has seen photographs dating back to, since photography began in the city, showing feet of snow in Central Park, feet of snow. And that was normal. And if you read, Laura Ingalls Wilder books, Little House on the Prairie, Little House in the Deep Woods, Americans used to deal with snow and blizzards. And in my own lifetime, it would snow. There would be deep snow, blizzards. It was uncomfortable. People had to dig themselves out, but it wasn't a catastrophe. The reason I bring this up is that Mamdani, I'm going somewhere with this. Mamdani has also declared a state of emergency. Now, that's not a trivial thing, and it doesn't just have to do with, a severe weather event. It literally is a legal status, and it's a very dangerous legal status, as I've warned you since my book, The End of America, which came out in 2007. Because when you declare a state of emergency, it means civil law is suspended. The person who declares the state of emergency gets to impose emergency law, which is often martial law. So maybe nothing like that will happen, but it's a very dark, scary precedent that, less than 2 months after this man took office, we don't have the protection of normal civil law in New York because it's snowing, because there is snowfall, because there might be a blizzard. it's a dumb reason to trot out a state of emergency. A state of emergency is 9/11, or nuclear attack or the plague, right? And I don't mean COVID. I mean, actual bubonic plague. That would be a state of emergency. A blizzard, does not require a state of emergency. There's one last thing that I want to talk about before I go to the Bible reading tonight. And I'm kind of glad that we're reading the Bible tonight. It seems like a good night to read God's word and figure out what other people did in, slightly scary or very difficult circumstances. And again, this may be nothing, this may be completely fine. Maybe Mom Donnie will handle it just fine and it'll all melt tomorrow. But I don't like the structure of control that he's building. The other thing he said in his press conference, which I really want you guys to follow up on, is that there will be increased surveillance at crosswalks. It went right by. I just heard it fleetingly, so I really need to look at the transcript. But that's like the beginning of China style, facial recognition, cameras everywhere. You being tracked by your phone, tracked by, they tried to track us by vaccine passports in this city during the pandemic. They did track people by vaccine passports in this city during the pandemic. But I don't like that. You don't need more surveillance in crosswalks of citizens because it's snowing. The last thing I want to mention, and Brian O'Shea is going to join us after our hour of Bible reading is over, and we'll talk more about this. Zoran Mamdani has also created probably partly in response to the intense criticism he received after the last blizzard, and I've been covering it on my social media, 7-foot high filthy piles of snow covered in dog poop, walls of trash, no trash collection. He got plenty of criticism for that. Plus 19 New Yorkers who are homeless freezing to death the last time around because he did away with sweeps of homeless encampments to protect people who would otherwise freeze to death. In the warm embrace of collectivism, his words, we lost 19 homeless New Yorkers last time around to exposure, death from freezing to death, a really 19th century Dickensian way to die. So this time, and people realized that the sidewalks were impassable and that the Department of Sanitation had difficulty getting the garbage because the sidewalks weren't cleared of snow, which is usually the city's job. There's millions of dollars that typically go to hiring people by the city. They're union jobs, they're good jobs, they have benefits, they have retirement, and they're the ones who typically, keep the snow clear so the Department of Sanitation can do their jobs. That didn't happen. No one really knows why not. And so this time around, to avoid that, instead of working efficiently with the people our millions of tax dollars already have in place to do those jobs, Zoran Mamdani has kind of weirdly and kind of chaotically offered people quite a lot of money for, totally unskilled labor. It's between, I think, $19 and $25 or $30 an hour. What is it, honey?
So the people could go to nyc.gov.
You could go to nyc.gov
/snow. And then it's emergency snow shovelers.
Emergency snow shovelers.
$19.14 an hour.
$19.14 an hour.
To $28.71.
Oh, goes up to $28.71 an hour.
First 40 hours.
After the first 40 hours. So
it says here only for illegal aliens.
Okay, that's a joke.
Okay.
Brian said it says only for illegal aliens, but that's a joke. However, interestingly, since there's a fight right now from Democrats who don't want any form of ID in order to vote, Zoran Mamdani is requiring multiple forms of ID to get a shovel and to get paid for shoveling. But the reason I bring all of this up, maybe it'll work out fine, maybe it won't. maybe people will keep the shovels, maybe fights will break out. It's honestly, it sounds pretty chaotic. The other thing it's doing is definitely undercutting the unions, who are, very much, whether you like them or not, very much a part of this city and have been for decades. But Mamdani said in his press conference that it's the shopkeeper's responsibility to shovel out the snow in and around the bus stop. Now, bus stops are really big, long, 30, 40 feet at least. And the snow was frozen solid last time around. If you take a drive through any major city after sunset, you'll notice something really strange. There are dark windows and empty offices. Right now, 1 in 5 commercial buildings in America is sitting vacant, and nearly $1 trillion in real estate loans are coming due this year. If those buildings stay empty, the banks are going to take the hit, and those are the same banks where your retirement savings likely sits. So there's a new free report called the Ghost Tower Signal that breaks it all down. It uncovers 7 early warning signs that showed up before every major crash since 1929. All 7 are active again right now. This won't make the evening news, but it could help you protect your savings from what's coming. And you can download it free at cloutgold.com. That's cloutgold.com, cloutgold.com, or call 855-803-GOLD to get your copy mailed to you. That's cloutgold.com or 855-803-GOLD. And Mamdani said they're going to be issuing summonses to store owners who don't do the job of digging out the bus stops from the snow. Well, and he's also saying it's store owners' responsibility to clear the sidewalk in front of their shop. That I can understand. But to assign to store owners the city job of digging the bus stops out of multiple feet of snow, and they're property owners, right?
Building.
And fining them if they don't, or they don't do it successfully. And what if you're, disabled as a store owner? What if you're elderly? Or what if you're a woman who's not that big and you just can't physically do it, right? You're still going to get summonsed. So I think this is really interesting because no one's ever said that before. The city cleared the snow. That's what our tax dollars are for. No one ever said you have to do it or we're going to come take more of your money. And Brian points out, and I think he's right, that this is yet another attack on property owners and on small business, right? I mean, it's these small businesses that make New York special, make it work, make it different from faceless strip mall cities across America, the little bodega, the little boutique, the little mom and pop, shoe repair store. Well, those are the ones who are being targeted if they don't get out there. And what does it mean to keep the bus stop clear? If the snow is going to continue to fall several feet tonight and tomorrow, are they supposed to be out there all night, so they don't get summoned? Are they supposed to, what if they can't clear it physically? I mean, there's gigantic equipment that we pay money for that's housed in giant garages, that's deployed in situations like this in New York. And that's not what Mamdani is rolling out. He is rolling out a whole new, weirdly Victorian army of chimney sweeps, right? It's it's like Mary Poppins. It's like, oh, I'm a chimney sweep with the little hat and I'm going to sweep in front of your, sidewalk. And, I'm going to doff my hat and you're going to give me some money, Mr. State. And it's also like this weird kind of, little mom and pop bodega owner, it's on you. And so the last thing that Brian points out is that the Bolsheviks in Russia, after they seized power and executed the royal family, the Russian royal family, forced aristocrats to shovel the snow. And Brian wants to say something, but yes,
No, there's
sweetheart, it's disconcerting when you're just this voice.
I'm not going to step in front.
You're not going to step in front of the camera. Okay.
But I'm just saying, I went to register for this snow shoveling thing, and the next available appointment, you have to show up. It says, I will bring 2 small photos. I will bring the original and copy of 2 forms of identification. I have a social security card and will bring it. I'm at least 18 years old, can do heavy labor. I will not report to a DSNY garage or DOT location if I have COVID-19. But then it says, select your borough, did that. Select DSNY garage, did that. And then select date for your appointment.
Okay, can you hear Brian's voice? I'm just afraid.
Yeah, they can probably hear it if you're on a Mac.
Okay.
The next available appointment is March 14th.
Wow. All right. Well,
and they won't let me select anything earlier.
So March 14th, it'll be springtime. The snow will have melted.
Well, that tells me they already gave out these jobs.
They already gave out the jobs. All right. Well, maybe that's sufficient. We'll see. All right. That's really helpful, sweetheart. I'm going to dive right in now to the 1560 Geneva Bible. There's not an easy transition there, except that, the enemy is at our gates, I think, and inside our gates. And so it's good to read about a small group of people who were facing gigantic odds, who were trying to maintain coherence, clarity of mission, stay, pointing in the direction that God had oriented them 3,500 years ago. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. You know that we finished Geneva Bible Numbers 20 in our last episode. And you recall that, once again, Miriam had died, and then the people lacked water, I believe it was, in Numbers 20, and complained about it. And God was, again, kind of frustrated and disappointed with them. So that is a recurring theme. So now we're in Geneva Bible 21, and we still are not in the promised land, you guys. We're still hovering around at the, outside the promised land. God has made it clear that this generation, including Aaron and Moshe, are going to have to die off because they've been so disappointing, disobedient, unhelpful, even Moshe. And they're not going to make it to the land of Israel, which is quite heartbreaking. So we're still outside the land of Israel. So chapter 21, here's the subheadline. Remember, that's not part of the text in the 1560 Geneva Bible. Israel vanquishes King Arad. The first serpents are sent for the rebellion of the people. Sihon and Og are overcome in battle. All right, and now the text begins. When King Arad the Canaanite, which dwelt toward the south, heard tell that Israel came by the way of the spies, then fought he against Israel and took of them prisoners. So Israel vowed a vow unto the Lord and said, if you will deliver and give this people into mine hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. It's interesting. Israel is being treated as if it's a singular being. And the Lord heard the voice of Israel and delivered them, the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them and their cities and called the name of the place Hormah. After they departed from the Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass, meaning to go around, to circle the land of Edom. And the people were sore grieved because of the way. They were very stressed and sad because it was such a long journey. And the people spoke against God yet again and against Moshe, saying, wherefore have you brought us out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For here is neither bread nor water, and our soul loathes this light bread. Wherefore the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, which stung the people, so that many of the people of Israel died. And I know you're hearing the echo of this. This is a thematic complaint. Why have you taken us out of slavery where at least we had enough to eat? Therefore, the people came to Moshe and said, "We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us." And Moshe prayed for the people, meaning on behalf of them. And the note says, "For they were stung therewith, were so inflamed with the heat thereof that they died." It's talking about the serpents, the snakes sting. And the Lord said unto Moshe, "Make you a fiery serpent and set it up for a sign, that as many as are bitten may look upon it and live." So Moshe made a serpent of brass and set it up for a sign. And when a serpent had bitten a man, then he looked to the serpent of brass and lived. And the children of Israel departed thence and pitched in Obot. And they departed from Obot and pitched, meaning pitched their tents, in Li Abarim, in the wilderness, which is before Moab on the east side. They removed thence and pitched upon the river of Zared. Thence they departed and pitched on the other side of Arnon, which is in the wilderness, and comes out of the coasts of the Amorites. For Arnon is the border of Moab, between the Moabites and the Amorites. Wherefore it shall be spoken in the book of the battles of the Lord, what thing he did in the Red Sea and in the rivers of Arnon, and at the stream of the rivers that goes down to the dwelling of Ar and lies upon the border of Moab. And from there, they turned to Be'er, which means well. The same is the well where the Lord said unto Moshe, "Assemble the people, and I will give them water." Then Israel sang this song, "Rise up well, sing you unto it. The princes digged this well. The captains of the people digged it. Even the La Wegner, I don't know. Oh, the foreigner, I think. It's hard to read that word. With their staves. And from the wilderness, they came to Matana. And from Matana to Nechaliel, and from Nechaliel to Bamot, and from Bamot in the valley, that is in the plain of Moab, to the top of Pisgah, that looks toward Ishimon. Then Israel sent messengers unto Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying, "Let me go through your land. We will not turn aside into the fields, nor into the vineyards, neither drink of the waters of the wells. We will go by the king's way until we be past your country." But Sihon gave Israel no license to pass through his country. But Sihon assembled all his people and went out against Israel into the wilderness. And he came to Yahoz and fought against Israel. But Israel smote him with the edge of the sword and conquered his land from Arnon unto Yavok, even unto the children of Ammon, for the border of the children of Ammon was strong. And Israel took all these cities and dwelt in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon and in all the villages thereof. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, which had fought before time against the king of the Moabites, and had taken all his land out of his hand, even unto Arnon. Wherefore, for that reason, they that spoke in Proverbs say, "Come to Heshbon, let the city of Sihon be built and repaired. For a fire is gone out of Heshbon, and a flame from the city of Sihon, and has consumed Ar of the Moabites and the lords of Bamot in Arnon. Woe be to thee, woe be to you, Moab. O people of Chemosh, you are undone. He has suffered," meaning allowed, "his sons to be pursued and his daughters to be in captivity to Sihon, the king of the Amorites. Their empire is lost from Heshbon unto Dibon, and we have destroyed them unto Nophah, which reaches unto Medeba." Thus Israel dwelt in the land of the Amorites. And Moshe sent to search out Yazer, and they took the towns belonging thereto and rooted out the Amorites that were there. And the note says Chemosh was the idol of the Moabites, and there's a reference, who was not able to defend his worshipers and took the idol for their father. So this is like a battle of gods, all right? And they turned and went up toward Bashan, And Og, the king of Bashan, came out against them, he and all his people, to fight at Edrei. Then the Lord said unto Moshe, fear him not, for I have delivered him unto your hand, and all his people and his land. And you shall do to him as you did unto Sihon, the king of the Amorites, which dwelt at Heshbon. They smote him, therefore, they struck him and his sons and all his people, until there was none left. So they conquered his land. So that is the Geneva Bible, 1560. The Pilgrim's Bible, the Puritans' Bible, Jefferson's Bible, Shakespeare's Bible. And you see that, I don't have to keep repeating this because you've been on this journey with us probably. There are several passages that are very, very, very familiar. They've come up like 6 or 7 or 8 times in these books to date. And, one of them, as I mentioned, is the children of Israel saying, it's not good enough, God. We don't like this food you're giving us. We don't like this light bread. We'll see how that's translated. We're sick of the food. We're sick, we don't have enough water. We miss the leeks. We miss the delicious onions. We miss the fantastic food of slavery in Egypt. And God really hates that. He hates it when they do that. He wants his people, but it sounds like he wants people to value and cherish freedom, even if it's uncomfortable. And I think he also wants them to recognize when he's sustaining them miraculously. The food they don't like is miraculous food in the middle of the desert. The manna from the dew is miraculous food that God manifests out of nothing because the people are hungry. The water that he provided was from a rock that had no water in it. You recall Moshe struck the rock with his staff. He wasn't supposed to do that. He was supposed to just speak to the rock, but he did. And the water came gushing out over and over and over. God is like, okay, fine. Here, I'm looking after you. Obviously, I'm going to look after you. I'm clearly the Lord of hosts. I'm going to bring you to the promised land. Trust me, please. Here's another miracle. And honestly, I can see, like I've said this many times before, I never knew till I read the Geneva Bible and the Hebrew Bible, up until this point, because I haven't read the whole thing. I'm going through it with you fresh. Hey, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf with Daily Cloud. I am here with some good news. Well, first I want to ask you something. Have you ever noticed how Washington seems to play by one set of rules and everyday Americans are stuck with another set? Because for decades, there has been a 2-tier financial system in this country. The political class and their donors get access to the best financial opportunities, to private deals, special investments, insider advantages. And ordinary Americans, they're told to stick with the same tired retirement options and to earn next to nothing and to hope inflation doesn't wipe them out. That wasn't an accident. I believe that was policy, but something has changed. Under President Trump, that system finally got challenged. With his Executive Order 14330, President Trump opened the door for ordinary Americans to access investment opportunities that were previously reserved for the wealthy and well-connected, especially involving retirement accounts. No lobbyists, no special connections, just the same rules for everyone. And that matters right now because America is in the middle of a massive AI and infrastructure build out, one that President Trump has made a national priority. Not speculation, not hype. It's real infrastructure with real capital, so real money is moving. And there's one AI-linked income opportunity I've been following, presented by our sponsors, that's positioned to benefit directly from this shift without forcing you to guess which tech stock is going to win. If you want to see how it works and see why this policy change matters so much, learn more at www.oxfordplan.com. Because for the first time in a long time, Washington didn't just talk about helping the middle class, it actually moved the rules in their favor. Discover Washington's 2-tier system at www.oxfordplan.com. Again, that's www.oxfordplan.com. this is really told from God's perspective, you know, a lot of it. And you really sympathize with God because he's pretty reasonable. You know, here's another thing I'll do to meet your needs. Please just align with me. Trust me, we're going somewhere. It's going to work out. And they just can't do it. They can't do it in a sustained way. Very human, right? But you can really feel God's frustration. And yeah, like so many miracles. I've gone before you in a pillar of smoke. I've gone before you in a, you know, in fire. I've manifested. I gave you the 10 commandments. I opened up the earth and swallowed up the people who were rebelling and complaining a few chapters back. I mean, over and over and over, the miraculous takes place at the hand of Yahweh. And people just keep whining and also being not confident, you know, like wussies, like not brave, not confident. What is the word? Like hesitant, not courageous, not showing leadership. It's not what God wants. Probably not what God wants from us to this day. You really get a sense, as I've been saying over and over in this journey, you get a sense of the personality of God very clearly, and the very human way he, you know, has preferences, and his preferences in this case are for brave people who can have faith in him. All right, let's go now to the Hebrew and see if there's anything important that we need to pick up. Vishma Haknani, and heard the Canaanite, Melech Adar, the king Adar, Yeshev Hanegev, seated or settled in the Negev desert, Kiba Yisrael derech ha'atrim, that the people of Israel were coming in the way of the same route that the spies came. Ve'yilachem b'Yisrael ve'yeshb mimeno shevi. And he waged war against Israel and took from them a captive. And I want you to hear a lot of echoes that are not in the English in this sentence. There's yeshev, settled, vayeshb, he took from them the same root, shev, yeshb, mimeno, from among them, shevi, a captive, same root, different meaning, right? Shev, shevi. All right. So that's, you know, just an example of this miraculous language. Why the repetition? Why? I don't know. I don't know how it's possible to have repetition unless the story is being crafted to make those echoes. But why make those echoes? I don't know. I'd love to know. I'll look into it some more. Vayidar Israel neder, and Israel made a vow, l'Adonai, to God, vayomer im naton titen, and said, if, and again a repetition, naton titen, he'll give the gift. Et ha'am hazeh beyadi, this people in my hand, ve'ha'charamti et arehem, I'll consecrate their cities. Vayishma, and he heard Adonai, God, b'kol Yisrael, in the voice of Israel, vayiten et haknani vayicharem, and he delivered, he handed over the Canaanite, vayicharem, and he consecrated et hem ve'et arihem, them and their cities, vayikra shem hamakom charma, and he called the name of the place Chorma. Vayis'u maher, mahor hahar, another repetition. And they journeyed, and this also has the implication of they carried, like they're carrying all their stuff. Vayis'u, nosea is to journey. And they journeyed mehor hahar, from the mountain of Hor. And again, there's that repetition. Har means mountain. Hor is the name of the mountain. So mihor hahar, you hear the repetition. It looks almost like the same word. Derech Yamsuf, the way of the Red Sea. Lisvov et Eretz Edom, to circle, Saviv is around, the land of Edom. tiktsar nefesh ha'am baderech. And the people became literally, their spirit was shortened. Katsar is short. So they ran low on morale. Nefesh is spirit, the people baderech, in the way. Vaydaber ha'am be'elohim, and they spoke, literally, the people in God. It doesn't say against, u ve'Moshe, and in Moses. In context, it's against. Lama he'elitenu, why did you bring us up? La'alot is to lift up. Mimitzrayim, from Egypt. Lamut bamidbar, to die in the desert. Ki ein lechem, because there's no food. Ve'ein mayim, and there's no water. Ve'nafshenu katsa, and our spirit is disgusted. Belechem ha-kalokel, with this rotten bread. Kalokel is, mikulkal is ruined, rotten, destroyed. So that's really interesting. It's much stronger in Hebrew than it is in the translation in the Geneva Bible, where it's this light bread. I understand why they mistranslated it. Kal is easy. It can also mean light, but the word mikalkel has kal in it, but it's a different word, and it means ruined, rotten. So they're grossed out. Vayishlach Adonai ba'am et hanechashim, and sent God into the people the snakes, ha-srafim venashchu et ha'am, the venomous snakes. Lisrof is to burn. Venachshu, and they snaked as a verb, right? They bit. Et ha'am, the people. Veyamat amrav, and many of the people died. Israel, from Israel. V'yavo ha'am el Moshe, and the people came to Moses. V'yomru chatanu, and they said, we have sinned. Ki dibarnu b'Adonai, because we spoke against the Lord. Again, it's literally because we spoke in the Lord. Uvecha, and in you. Hit palel el Adonai, pray toward God. Ve'yaser me'aleinu et hanachash. V'yitpalel Moshe be'ad ha'am. Pray to the Lord that he remove the snakes from us. So Moses prayed on behalf of the people. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, and God said to Moses, Aselecha saraf, make yourself a serpent, v'sim oto al nes, and put it on a pole. V'haya kol hanashuch v'ra'a oto v'chai, and let anyone who's bitten look at this and live. Moshe v'ya'as, and made Moshe, Moses, nechash nechoshet. Listen to that language. This is so beautiful. I can't even believe it. V'ya'as, and made Moshe, Moses, nechash nechoshet. Same echo, different meanings. How is this even possible? Nechash is a snake. Nechoshet is copper. How do they do that? Right? Nechash, nechoshet. Same echo, same letters, except for the taf added to the second word, different meanings. A snake that is copper. Yesimehu, and he placed him al ha nes. Ve Adonai im nashach hanachash, and whenever a snake bit a man, et ish, a man, vehabit el nechash, and he looks toward the snake, hanachoshet, the copper, vechai, and he lives. And listen to yet another amazing echo, neshach hanachash. It's almost a palindrome. Neshach, bitten, hanachash, by the snake. Neshach hanachash. The words are literally, the letters are mirroring each other. Vayis'u b'nei Yisrael, and the children of Israel journeyed. V'yachanu be'ovot, and they camped in Ovot. V'yis'u, and they journeyed me-ovot, from Ovot, ve'yachanu, and they camped Be'iyeh ha'avarim, in the wasteland passes, Bamidbar, in the wilderness, Asher al pnei Moab, which is on the face of Moab, Mimizrach hashemesh, to the east of the sun. And they translate that toward the rising sun. It's such a beautiful sentence. Misham, from there, Nas'u v'yachanu, they traveled and they camped Benachal Zerek, literally in the stream of Zered, Benachal Zered, in the stream of Zered. Misham Nas'u v'yachanu, from there they traveled and they camped Me'ever Arnon, on the other side, across the Arnon, Asher Bamidbar, which was in the desert, Ha-Yotzeh Migvul Ha-Emori, which extends from the Amorite border, Migvul Ha-Emori, Ki Arnon Gvul, for the Arnon was the Moabite border, Moab, Bein Moab Uvein Ha-Emori, between Moab and the Amorites. Now these are different tribes, the Moabites, the Amorites. Again, for this reason, or concerning this, Ye'amar, it said, Besefer Milchamot Adonai, in the book of the battles of God, the wars of God, Et Vahev Besufa, what he gave at the Sea of Reeds, Ve'et Hanechalim Arnon, and the streams of Arnon. That's a quote. Ve'eshed Hanechalim, and the spilling of the streams, Asher Nata Leshevet, that turned to settle at Ar, Venishan Ligvul Moab, and leaned toward the border of Moab. Umisham Be'era, and from there toward the well, Hu HaBe'er, it is the well, Asher Amar Adonai LeMoshe, which God said to Moses, Esof et ha'am, gather together the people, Ve'et na lahem maim, and I will give them water. So it's a well they've already encountered when they were complaining about not having water. Az Yashir Israel, then sang Israel, Et Hashira, the song, Hazot, this, Ali Be'er Enu La, ascend, O well, sing to it. Be'er Chafruha, a well dug, Sarim, by princes, Keruha Nedivei, carved out by nobles of the people, Ha'am, B'mechokek, B'mish Anotam, Umi Midbar Matana, through the lawgiver with their staffs, and from the desert a gift. Umi Midbar Matana, and from the desert a gift. Beautiful. Umi Matana, Nachaliel, and from the gift to the streams, Ume Nachaliel Bamot, and from the streams to the heights. U Mibamot Hagai, and from the heights to the valley, Asher Beste Moab, which is in the valley of Moab, Rosh HaPisga, at the top of the peak, Ha Nishkafa al Pnei Ha Yeshimon, that overlooks the wastelands. And that's all a quote. It's part of this beautiful song. V'yishlach Israel, and Israel sent, meaning the people of Israel sent, malachim, messengers. Now remember, malach is the same word as angels, but the people in this context definitely sent messengers. El Sichon, to Sichon, Melech HaEmori, the Amorite king, Lemor, saying, and this is a quote, E'ebra Aretz, let me pass, let me cross over, la'avor is to cross over, be'artzecha, in your land, lo nite b'stei, we will not turn into the fields, u'be'kerem lo nishte, or the vineyards, we will not drink, me be'er, well water, b'derech hamelech nilech, in the way of the king, the highway of the king we will go, ad asher na'avor Gvulecha, until we have passed through your territory. And I believe we had exactly this exchange a couple of chapters ago. I'm not positive, but this sounds like a quote that we have run through before. Velonatan Sichon, and he didn't give Sichon. And by the way, the word natan is the same root as matana, gift. So he didn't allow Sichon, et Israel, avor bigvulo, to cross over his borders, ve'esof Sichon, and Sichon gathered et kol amo, all his people, ve'yetze likrat Israel, and he went out to the desert for the sake of Israel, hamidbara, toward the desert, ve'yavo yetza vayel Chem B'Israel, and he arrived at Yachaz, Yachaz, and fought against, warred with Israel. V'yikehu, and he smote Israel, lefi cherev, with a sword, v'yirash et arzo, and they took possession of his land. Me'arnon, from the Arnon, which is a river, ad Yabok, to Yabok, ad bnei Ammon, as far as the children of Ammon, ki az gvul bnei Ammon, because the border of the children of Ammon was strong. V'ikach Israel et kol ha'arim, and Israel took, meaning conquered, all these cities, ha'ele, these cities, vayeshev Israel, and Israel settled, bechol arei ha'amori, in all the cities of the Amorites, becheshbon ubechol bnoteha, in Cheshbon and all her villages. Literally all her daughters, but it also could mean all the livnot is to build, so they translated all its villages, all her villages. Ki Cheshbon, because Cheshbon, which is the name of a city, Ir Sichon, was the city of Sichon, Melech HaEmori, the king of the Amorites, who it was Vehu Nilcham b'Melech Moav, and the king of the Amorites, he had fought against the first king of Moab, Harishon, the first, V'ikach et kol arzo, and he took all his land, miyado, from his hand, ad Arnon, until Arnon. So this is going back a little to Amorite history and how they had taken their land from the king of Moab earlier. Al-Ken, for all of this, concerning this, Yomru Hamishlim Bou Cheshbon, those who speak in parables say, come to Cheshbon, Tibane Vetikonen Ir Sichon. Come to Cheshbon, may it be built and established as the city of Sichon. It's still a quote. Ki esh yatzah, because fire went out from Cheshbon, le hava mikriyat Sichon, a flame from the city of Sichon, achla Ar Moab be'alei bamot Arnon. It consumed Ar of Moab, the masters of the high places of Arnon. And by the way, very important, high places are places of sacrifice in a pagan culture. So the high places are also the pagan, impure to the children of Israel, sacred sites, sacred temples, altars, right? Oy lecha, I love this word. You've got to know this word. Oy, they still say it. Oy va'avoy, and even in Yiddish, right? Oy vey, you've heard that, no doubt, in Woody Allen films. Oy, it means, it comes from this long ago. It means woe to you. Oy lecha, woe to you. Moab, avadata kemosh, you are lost. Your avod is to work, but it's also to be abandoned, right? Oy lecha Moab, woe to you, Moab. Avadata, you're lost, you're abandoned. Chemosh, people of Chemosh. Natan banav, he has given his sons plitim, as refugees. Ubnotav, and his daughters bishvit lemelech Emori Sichon, as captives into captivity to Sichon, king of the Amorites. Niram avad Cheshbon, the kingdom is destroyed from Cheshbon, ad Dibon, until Dibon. Nashim ad Nofach, asher ad Midva. It has been removed from Dibon. We laid them waste as far as Nofah, which is near Medeba. And that's the end of that quote. Vayeshev Israel, and that word lashevet, to sit, but also to settle. Israel settled be'eretz ha'emori, in the land of the Amorites. V'yishlach Moshe leragel et Ya'azer, and Moses sent men to spy out Ya'azer, Ve'yil Kidu, and they captured Bnoteha, its villages. Again, that word, it's buildings, it's livnot, its villages. Ve'yoresh, et ha'emori asher sham, driving out the Amorites that were there. Upnu, and they turned. Again, panim is faces. They faced. They turned. V'ya'alu, and went up. Derech habashan, toward the Bashan. V'yitze Og, and then Og, the king of Bashan, Melech Bashan, went out. Likratam, for their sake. Hu ve'chol amo, he and all his people. Lemilchama edrei, to wage war at Edrei, to war. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, and God said to Moses, Al tireh, don't fear him. Again, that very important word, lirot. It means, it sounds like lirot, to see, but it's different. It means to have awe, to have fear, to be intimidated. It's often translated as fear God, like God is scary, but it actually means be in awe of God, recognize his hugeness, right? Take note in a big way. Well, it can also mean don't be afraid. And so in this context, God is saying to Moses, don't be afraid. Do not fear him. Al tira oto, don't fear him. Ki biyadecha, because in your hand, natati oto, I have given him. Again, natati has that same root as matana, gift, I've given him. Ve'et kol amo, and all his people. Ve'et arzo, and his land. Ve'asita lo ke'asher asita lesichon, and you will do to him as you did to Sichon, melech ha'emori, king of the Amorites, asher yoshev b'cheshbon, who dwells in Cheshbon. Ve'yaku oto, and they smote him. Ve'et banav, and his sons, ve'et kolamo, and all his people, ad bilti hishir, till there was none left, no survivor left behind. Lo sharid ve'yirshu et arzo, and they took possession of his land. So that is the Hebrew. And, what can we reflect about that? Well, let's just take a minute. I guess one thing that occurred to me when I was reading the route they took is it's pretty boring to read the route they took, right? And it's boring, again, that word verisimilitude. It's boring because it sounds like a real route that was really taken. Again, I keep saying over and over, but this is such a good example of it. This book, this Torah, doesn't sound like other origin stories that are mythological, right? Even the Odyssey, which is a very detailed, wonderful fable, right? Myth. It tells kind of where Odysseus went, for sure. Then, they went there, they went north, then he stopped an island. Here's Scylla and Charybdis, right? But it doesn't have long, unpoetic passages like, and then he went to Sparta, and he turned left at Sparta, and he went 150 miles, and then there was a well, and then they turned right at the well, and they went around the territory of the people they were trying to avoid, and they were annoyed about the detour, right? Like it doesn't have those passages because it's poetry, and it's also supposed to be inspiring, and it's mythological. Maybe there was a real Odysseus. Maybe there was, maybe there was a real Patroclus, right? Maybe there was, but some of those cities, some of those events are definitely real. They're historical. But the Odyssey and the Iliad, right, have been highly mythologized by the time you're reading the poetry. And so long, boring passages about, the route they took aren't part of it, because that's not good poetry. It's not good myth. This is different. Sometimes it's soaring poetry. Sometimes it's just a travelogue. And it's literally a travelogue that's so detailed that many, many Bibles will show literally the route that was just described in Numbers 21. Here you turn right, here you go north. And again, to me, I don't know that every single thing in this book happened exactly the way the author or authors say or said that it did, but something real happened, is my judgment from these boring passages about exactly where this group of people went. The other thing I really want you to feel, and it's a little hard to do it because the language, the chapters in which nothing much happens except that the children of Israel wander around in the desert, arguing with God, are told in much the same voice, and the chapters are about the same length as a chapter like this in which a ton of stuff has happened, right? So it's easy to kind of zone out and not really process what a big deal this chapter 21 of Numbers is, because we've been wandering in the desert for a long time, and the children of Israel have been not ready, no conflict, right? There's nothing has happened that's normal conflict in a normal story of heroism and survival and overcoming. Here we have conflict. Not only do we have conflict at last, right? The last real conflict was in Egypt with Pharaoh, and then running away from, not really a conflict, an escape, fleeing, not that heroic really, the army of the Egyptians, which miraculously, as you recall, were swallowed up in the Red Sea. But here we have a real war. We have war. The war is here. The war has come. So however the children of Israel have, disappointed God, over and over again in this journey, as God is like trying to do a boot camp with them, almost like turning them into people who will do his bidding in this very important task of getting into the promised land and taking possession of it, and then setting up like a people that revere God that will populate the rest of the world with the DNA of people who revere God through, if you're Christian, through Jesus. And if you're not Christian, that really did happen just from the exile, right? Judeo-Christian values, Jewish values went all over the world. Whether people liked Jews or not, their values went all over the world, right? That prediction came true. But finally, we have war. And so on some level, God clearly has decided that, as annoying as these people can be, they're now ready. They're ready for combat. And not only is there war, there's a series of kind of miraculous victories. And they're just narrated in a very flat way, the way sometimes the narrator will narrate something really big, like Miriam died and was buried. That's a big deal. She's a big part of these people. She was a leader. She's the sister of the priest Aaron and the leader Moshe. But she died and was buried. Boom. Well, the narration is quite flat here too, but they've had, I think, 2 wars, and they've defeated 2 kings, if I understand this correctly. And they took over their land, and they did what, conquering armies did at this time, which is they vanquished the sons. They took the sons as refugees, and they took the daughters into captivity for slaves. That's what armies did. But they've taken over the Amorites' land. They defeated the Amorites, and these are powerful. These are not wandering nomads, living in tents like the children of Israel have been, and presumably like other tribes this time in this area also are like nomads, like Bedouins living in tents, right? These are built cities. These are kings of settled cities. They say the word arim over and over. These are cities, and also bnotam, the villages. So it's a whole network of established a kingship, right? These are pagans. They worship another God. It's not Yahweh, but Yahweh's like, don't worry about them. Don't be scared of them. I'm going to deliver them into your hand. Just do as I say, Moshe. And the children of Israel did. In this chapter, they did seem to obey God, and they went into battle, which they had no reason to believe they wouldn't be sold into slavery or massacred. But God did deliver the Amorites into the hand of the children of Israel. And then they settled in their cities. These people have been on the move for book after book after book, at least 2 books since they left Egypt. Well, now they're settling. They're not settling yet in the land of Israel. It's at the border, probably in what's now Jordan, I would say, what used to be called Transjordan. That's my reading. I'll take another look and let you know if that's not correct. But it's still in the desert. It's not a nice place, but they won. They took over built cities and settled in them. So that's huge. I mean, these people are so random, and they've barely been organized into tribes, and they've barely had princes, 12 princes, set at the head of their tribes, and they barely had a leader set over all the princes. They've barely created a council for strategy. Remember those chapters when Moses was like, this is too difficult. I can't do it. And God said, okay, calm down. I'll get you a council. You don't have to do everything yourself. They barely established a religion, like, how do we worship? Well, here's the tent. Okay, we carry it with us. All of this, they barely managed to do, and yet they've taken over a whole corner of the Middle East, right? In chapter 21, I'm sorry, of Numbers. So that's a really big deal. Like, there's action at last. You could say that it's not very nice that they made war rather than doing some sort of diplomacy with the Amorites, but that's not the world that they were in. And that's not what God wanted. God didn't want them to collaborate with the Amorites. He wanted them to wipe them out, take their stuff. He doesn't want them to cohabit and collaborate with idol worshipers. He doesn't. So let's see who has comments. We've got our friend Netta Slabi calling in from Japan. Hey, Netta, I hope you're well. And then lots of people have lots of comments. Roscoe Ross. Hi, Dr. Wolf. And he has an unrelated comment, which we'll get to if we have time. And he's an old friend of ours. And Netta says sometimes no sound. Let me know if you guys had trouble with the sound. This is funny. So someone said, I'm going to do a Svedka shot since D. Wolf is having wine. It's actually water in a wine glass, but I don't have a chaser beside water. That's funny. Another time when I'm not reading, a holy text, I'll definitely have a drink with you guys. And for those of you who don't drink, you can have soda. And then Roscoe Ross says, damn right, it's boring. That's why we need the Zohar. I don't want to be struck by lightning here, especially given the vulnerability of the intro that you may have missed, where we're on an island that's being cut off from the mainland and being put under emergency law, I think as a trial run for something bad later, maybe. But so I don't want to say the word of God is boring. I should qualify that. It may be boring to you. I really want to acknowledge on this journey, a lot of people find reading the Bible boring because the translations are so terrible. And that's one reason I do think it's important for me to read you the Hebrew, which I think is so exciting to hear the original. And well, here's a long one. Talia Amos says the 2 Hebrew infinitives are very similar in writing and sound, but they come from different roots and have completely different meanings. That's right. La'avod is to work. That's right, very common in modern Hebrew. Ani oved, I'm working. Le'avod is to get lost, to perish, to stray. And the root, she's absolutely right, is with an aleph, not an ayin. Examples, who le'abed, but biya'ach, he got lost in the forest. And she's got more to say. It's very, very accurate. And if I said they were from the same root, forgive me, that was not correct. They're from different roots. You can hear there's one word in the root different, aleph instead of ayin. but they do sound exactly like they're homonyms, right? Or often, and then that was the end of that post. So we'll have to have another post to hear how that ends. It's a metaphor for how we go. Roscoe says something very profound. The wandering in the desert, I assume you mean, Roscoe, is a metaphor for how we go in useless circles in our own lives. So true. So true. Looking back on your life, how many times did you or I, will certainly say I do it, waste time, waste energy, waste relationships ruminating about things we can't change, or not doing what we know in our heart we have to do to move ahead with our mission so often, or procrastinating, delaying, trying to do our stuff instead of what we know to be God's stuff, for us, which usually works out best for us. Here's what Roscoe's saying. 40 years in the desert is a metaphor for that. So true, Roscoe. I agree with you. That is very profound. And I want to thank Talia for that excellent correction in the Hebrew. And let's go back to someone who wants to talk about the Epstein files. Let's talk about the Epstein files in my show Outspoken. This person is saying if they released 100% of the Epstein files fully unredacted, it could set in motion a chain of events that could ultimately lead to the extinction of the human species. I don't know that that's true. And as a journalist, if I really can't source or confirm something, I just leave it there. If you've got a source about why it'll lead to the extinction of the human species, let's hear it. But I'm a little overwhelmed with the horrors that are revealed in the Epstein files. And so one reason I'm glad to turn back to the Geneva Bible is things are so gross out there. I'd like to look at something less gross. And this is very pure and lovely. So let me just take a quick look at the Revised Standard Version, okay? And so often it's so poorly translated. And I am going to see if what I did was bad. Let's see. It looks like I didn't call up the Revised Standard Version, and we're out of time. Do you want me to do Revised Standard Version Numbers 21 and share it? Let's see what jumps out, just because we always do that. Here is Bible Gateway. I will share my screen. I'm going to stop that screen. I'm going to share the screen like this, and there it is, the bronze serpent. All right. When the Canaanites who dwelt in the Negev heard that Israel was coming by the way of Atarim, he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. Now that's interesting. In Hebrew, there's one captive taken. In the English RSV, it's multiple captives. And I don't think that's correct. And Israel vowed a vow to the Lord and said, if you will, I want to call your attention to this. This drives me crazy. The Revised Standard Version always has dialogue with God be this weird, archaic thee and thou wilt in a way that we just don't, we haven't spoken like that since the 16th century, early 17th century. And it's nonsensical for people to talk to God that way. In Hebrew, they are talking to God exactly the way they talk to each other. And I think that's important. So Israel vowed a vow and said, if thou wilt indeed give this people into my hand, then I will utterly destroy their cities. And the Lord hearkened to the voice of Israel and gave over the Canaanites, and they utterly destroyed them in their cities. So the name of the place was called Hormah, Mount Hor. And again, in Hebrew, it's more like the hill of Hor. They set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom, and the people became impatient on the way. Well, in Hebrew, it's much more poetic. Remember, their spirit was shortened on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moshe. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Now, in Hebrew, it's much stronger. It's rotten or ruined, mekulkal. destroyed, right? And this is worthless. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, so that many people of Israel died. And the people came to Moshe and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he takes away the serpents from us. So Moshe prayed for the people, and the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moshe made a bronze serpent. Again, in Hebrew, it's copper. I think that's minor. Set it on a pole, and if a serpent bit any man, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. That's all pretty correct. The people of Israel set out and camped in a boat, and they set out from a boat and camped at Lieh Abarim in the wilderness, which is opposite Moab, toward the sunrise. I prefer the literal east of the sun. From there they set out and encamped in the valley of Zered. From there they set out and encamped on the other side of the Arnon. This is the passage that to me reads so tedious, like so real, which is in the wilderness that extends from the boundary of the Amorites, for the Arnon is the boundary of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Wherefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord, Waheb in Sufa and the valleys of the Arnon and the slope of the valleys that extend to the seat of Ar means to the border of Moab. And there they continued to Be'er, that is the well of which the Lord said to Moses, gather the people together and I will give them water. Then Israel sang this song, spring up, O well, sing to it, the well which the princes dug, which the nobles of the people delved with a scepter and with their staves. And again, to delve is a very archaic word that just means to dig. There's no reason to make their language so archaic. From the wilderness, they went on to Matana, which means gift, and from Matana to Nechaliel, and from Nechaliel to Bamot, and from Bamot to the valley lying in the region of Moab by the top of Pisgah, which looks down toward the desert. And then I'm going to skip that because that's all pretty accurate. Woe to you, O Moab, you are undone, O people of Chemosh. And the commentator said it's much more like abandoned or lost. You're lost. He's made his sons fugitives and his daughters captives. Okay, King Og is defeated. So they slew him and his sons and all his people till there was not one survivor left to him, and they possessed his land. And the Lord said to Moses, do not fear him, for I've given him into your hand and all his people and all his land. So that's all pretty accurate. So I will close that out, with the caveats that I highlighted what is not accurate. It just never Revised Standard Version never makes my heart sore. Guys, we're all done with the reading of the Geneva Bible. We've got a little troll, Jarmud de Brun, with a Palestinian flag. Well, you're welcome here, Jarmud. And he says doppelganger, which of course is a reference to a very fantasy-ridden book. I haven't read it, but this is my understanding. Written ostensibly to destroy my reputation by a woman named Naomi Klein. I'm still here, didn't destroy my reputation. I've kept my eyes on the prize, and that includes reading all the way up to Numbers 21 in the 1560 Geneva Bible.